I don't think anyone's looking that cool. It's incredibly hot at 31 degrees ambient temperature, but yeah.
When I say cool, I just mean looking sleek,
You mean fast?
stylish and fast.
So who was looking fast? I'd say that was Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. It looked good. I think he looked very comfortable out there, especially the fact that he started on a set of soft tyres and ran them all the way through the session and was still able, after 10 laps of punishing those soft tyres, to pop himself up into second place, just behind Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. So I think Ferrari's looking like they're back in the game in a way on this track. Maybe it suits their car a little bit more. And their updates may be working a bit better here than in Silverstone, for example. But no, I think the Red Bull, for me, it looked like it was in a comfortable place. And remember, they've brought a raft of updates themselves.
Yeah, and not the only team to do that, of course. It seems like a very clever strategy, actually. Go and punish those soft tyres as much as you can, to the point where you wouldn't be racing them. And that gives you a handle then for your race pace and for your race strategy come Sunday afternoon. I don't know who's going to be running the soft tyres on Sunday, whether we get a one-stop race or a two-stop race here, and that will develop as this next session goes along too. We've got FP2, 60 minutes, FP3, 60 minutes, and then qualifying, and the race to come this weekend. And there is the Red Bull car sat nicely in the shade at the moment. Track temperature 49 degrees. And we're approaching 5 o'clock, and 31 degrees the air temperature. Max Verstappen, who has seen the challenges one by one come at him in the first part of the season. He might have won 7 races, but we've had 6 different race winners in those 12 races. But as the challenges come to take him on, one by one, race by race, he's managed to extend his championship lead. So it's not exactly panic stations for him yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been the same person behind him every single time or beating him when they have. So he has extended his advantage over second place in the championship, thanks to Mercedes now being up there as well, robbing points from McLaren and particularly Lando Norris.
Yeah, there's the Constructors' Championship. Then Red Bull 373, Ferrari just 7 points ahead of McLaren and Mercedes. Winners of the last 2 races in 4th place. Ted Kravitz, as we look into Lewis Hamilton's garage, the winner, of course, at Silverstone, and as Nico Hülkenberg emerges from his garage for the first time today, whereabouts are you in that pit lane?
Hello, Crofty. Hello, Anthony. Hello, everybody. Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and it's 5 o'clock here in Central Europe, in Budapest, Hungary, in fact. And if it's 5 o'clock, I feel like a cup of tea. Yes, in this heat, I feel like a cup of tea. Cools you down quicker, you know, Crofty. Nice
does?
boiling hot cup of tea.
I should try it sometime.
You should. But in lieu of that, I'm actually outside Red Bull, just admiring the upgrades on the one car, because it's the engine cover. Now, many of you have looked at this Red Bull RB20 over the season, and it's not as beautiful as it used to look. In fact, they copied the cucumbers, the cannons, the channels, the sausage channels, either side of the engine airbox. You know the ones I mean, the ones that look like they're sort of hiding 2 gigantic cucumbers. Ooh, I'd give anything. Cool as a cucumber for a bit of cucumber now. But they're pretty ugly, and you've always looked at them and sort of borrowed an idea off Mercedes and thought, how could Adrian Newey come up with this engine cover with these huge cooling channels down the side? Surely they're not good. And they've been dropped in this upgrade. It looks like a much more sleek car. It looks much better, but that engine cover with the new sleek profile of it, without the cucumber cannon channels on the either side, is only on Max Verstappen's car. I'm sure if you were watching us in Free Practice 1, you would have noticed it's pretty hard to miss, but it is all the other upgrades, the front wing, the front suspension, the rear corner, they're all on Sergio Perez's car, as well as Max Verstappen's. But worth bearing in mind on this crucial weekend for Sergio Perez, he does not have all of the Red Bull upgrades.
Thank you very much, Ted. I've seen many things in my life. Never have I witnessed a cucumber being shot out of a cannon. I think I'm missing out.
Sounds exciting, though. Yeah.
So, if I'm right, Red Bull borrowed inspiration from Mercedes, and a few races later they've dropped it. Sounds a bit like Mercedes, doesn't it? Who seem to have borrowed inspiration from others now, which has helped their progress up the field in the last few races.
It's funny, I spoke to an aerodynamicist at the very beginning of this new generation of F1 car, and they said that you'll see some difference in the beginning, but then you'll see convergence. Everyone will converge to one correct way. Ultimately, as you climb the that pyramid of performance, you get closer to the top, and then you get to, like Naomi said, diminishing returns in every single upgrade you bring to the car. There has to be a limit when you're fighting a certain set of regulations as to how far you can take it. So I feel like we're now starting to get to that point where we're progressing up that pyramid, and everyone's getting closer and closer as they reach the top of how far they can take their development. It's really interesting, though, that Red Bull have tried something, maybe thought, not too happy with how that was working, and gone back to, well, not back to where they were, but at least ditched the, I know exactly what Ted means by those bulbous sides to the engine cover. So yeah, interesting that they've now gone with this latest update. Yeah,
and as we start the second half of the season, you almost feel at the moment, with no necessary proof in terms of a race or qualifying, you know, the rest have gone in at half-time thinking we're still in with a chance here. And then just after the half-time break, are Red Bull going to come out like the Spanish football team did on Sunday at the Euros final and say, you think you've got a chance? Watch us move into a second gear.
Exactly. So this, I mean, they've said it themselves, haven't they? This latest set of updates for the car, it's vital that it works. So maybe the car was going to work here anyway.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes this year. With different tracks we come to, we heard from Laurent McKee saying we just seem to be, in a better place here. We're happy with the car, but it hasn't been that way other tracks that we've been to, and for Sauber as well. They've got a car that's working very well here, and it worked well here last year as well.
Talking of Sauber, a couple of updates, side pod inlet and the engine cover for cooling and conditioning in these temperatures. Floor body, floor edge, rear corner, rear suspension, halo, the mirrors and the headrest. That's the upgrade areas that they've been working on to bring here to this track, and it coincided with Joe Guanyu, I thought, putting in a really, really impressive time, 5th fastest in FP1 as Hamilton crosses the line now to go quickest overall by half a second from Alex Albon.
Yeah, immediately into the 1-minute 18s. Only just, but into the 18s nevertheless, and Sargent behind there just pops in a 19.3. But yeah, with Joe and Sauber, they had a very strong FP1 and FP2 out the whole way through last year. They were quick, so we should take that time from Joe in FP1 pretty seriously. I think this upgrade that they bought, or 9 of them, they're the team that come here with the most upgrades. As Lewis said, really. See how they've widened that corner?
Yes.
They've given it a bit of the Austria treatment with how they've just moved that white line back. And you'll see that.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense, because it means now when the car is fully over the white line, you're definitely off the track and you're having a rough ride over that green and white curb.
Had a good chat with that man there on your screen, Peter Bonington, on the way out to Budapest, who described Silverstone as almost as emotional as winning a world title. And I said, how did you do it? How did you do 14 laps at the end on those soft tyres, you know, and staying ahead of this car, Max Verstappen? He said, well, we might have whacked on a lot of front end. We might have made a few turns and twists, he said, but it was Lewis's management of those tyres and the early laps that sealed the deal. Everyone was out in front, he was managing them absolutely perfectly.
Exactly. I mean, everyone, you're always looking for the perfect lap as a driver. You're looking for the perfect race as a team, and from a driver's point of view as well, of course. Every lap, every corner, you want to absolutely maximise it to the best of your ability. And I feel like Mercedes won that race, not just because they had the fastest car in the dry and they were able to pull away from the field, but as a team and a driver combo, particularly from Lewis's side, they were as close to maximising a perfect race as you could ever hope to. And it was really nice to see the team, you know, firing on all cylinders right back where they used to be a few years ago.
Whether it continues, we shall see. But as I mentioned earlier, they are the winners of the last 2 races, albeit one was a little more convincing than the other, and I'm sure George Russell won't mind that being mentioned. 8 laps from the end, of course, in Austria, he inherited the lead and never gave it away. Right, so Max Verstappen on the medium compound tyres here, going for what is his first push lap of this session, and well within the margins, going through turn 11, about half a second down.
My brakes are not working, they're not biting.
On the medium tyre at this stage, but brakes are not working. 6 braking events here. They're not necessarily heavy stops, Anne, but you do need your brakes.
Yeah, two heavy stops as we exit the final corner and cross the line. It's going to be P5 for Verstappen, his teammate Perez. tops the charts at the moment, 2.5 tenths ahead of the Mercedes. But interestingly, Verstappen picking up on the fact that even though it's not a heavy braking circuit per se, you still definitely need a good bite to the brakes, even if you're just leaning on them, even if you're just sort of brushing onto to the brakes, like you do in many corners around this track. And actually, the drivers, they ride the brake and throttle at the same time quite often, particularly on qualifying laps today. And if you're not feeling that the bite from the brake, like he mentioned, it changes your whole balance of how you perceive the car.
Lando Norris on the hard tyre, 11th fastest. Everyone out the track bar Ricciardo, Leclerc, Tsunoda and Zhou Guanyu. And standing beside the track, very good afternoon, Martin Brundle.
I am indeed. As we're watching a blue flag, the Aston Martin turning up here at flat out, basically. And there was a Red Bull going quite slowly. One of my favourite places of the year to stand and watch Formula One cars and drivers at work. But then I say that at every track, don't I, really? But they rock up here completely unsighted. It's blind. It's blind. And, okay, sorry, we're just getting in Cameraman's way here. But yeah. And then it's just under 150 miles an hour as they go through the corner. Those drivers are on a slow lap, as we see. I mean, it's a really dodgy place to be slow, it must be said. And if you, and Anthony said, you told me, Anthony, didn't you, that on the simulator that you drive, this corner seems impossibly fast. And let me tell you, standing here, it looks impossibly fast as they just show up. I noticed that George Russell really flicks his car in, the Mercedes in. He's got a very positive turn in to this corner. Others just bleed it into the corner, lean it into the corner a little bit. But when you turn in, you cannot see any of this going on at all. In terms of the curbs, the apex curb, the exit curb. And if you had a problem, or you get it wrong, or you do connect with another driver, it will be an almighty crash down here. And it's quite disconcerting to see them having to really mind their tyres as they go on an outlap. And then in amongst those, we'll wait for another one to come in here. Absolutely flat out. It's just down a gear. Here comes Lando Norris. And then they feed into turn 5, and that's just a complete arrive and drive. They're still shifting down as they turn into that really long 180-degree sort of parabolic turn 5. And just carrying just monster speed everywhere. That was George Russell coming through, but slowly on that occasion. Yeah, anyway, it's astonishing. It's astonishing the commitment the drivers have got, how the cars just cope with being thrown in at 150 miles an hour, and then a big left direction change to be on the correct part of the track. Watch the Ferrari there into 5. On the curb, the Ferrari was sliding around at the rear end, but I could hear him flat out. He did not lift off the throttle. Sparks coming off the skid blocks underneath. Tyres rumbling on the curb. Car working hard, moving around. I mean, the energy is absolutely extraordinary. Back to you, Prof.
I love it. Thanks ever so much, Martin. Meanwhile, at slightly slower speed in the pit lane, Yuki Tsunoda. Just have a little look at this. Came in for a little stop, and oh, somebody forgot to get the red and green lights gizmo out of the way. From high-speed bravery to low-speed idiocy.
At least it proves that the cameras are pretty tough as well. It's not just the roll hoop. So luckily it was the strongest part of the car that it hit. Or is that the halo? I don't know. Yeah, maybe the halo is the strongest part of it, but it's close, isn't it?
If you were riding on board with Yuki Tsunoda, you'd have probably been sort of blinking a bit, thinking, oh no, the camera's coming at us. But sadly, due to events today, we can't bring you the onboard facility, so don't press your interactive button today. Fingers crossed, normal service will be resumed tomorrow.
But going back to that corner of turn 4 where Martin was just standing, wow, what a great camera position that they found there. And it highlights exactly what we try to describe and explain about this modern generation of F1 car, the ground effect cars, sucking the car to the ground, and there it is again, that corner is, you've already committed from inside the car when you go full throttle. That's why Sainz wasn't backing out of it when he went over the curb, because you take that decision even before you turn into the corner, you then go full throttle again.
Yeah.
So that's why when we see drivers that do run wide and over the curb, there's no backing out of it. Well, you can back out of it, but the speed you've carried in there, that you just can't recover if you've just read the car wrong or just misplaced it ever so slightly. It's such an awesome corner to drive in the virtual reality. I can't imagine the amount of G-force that they're feeling on the body as they turn into there. It's got to be well over 4 times the weight of their body, the weight of their head, and your neck's just struggling to keep your head upright.
Verstappen on a quick one here. Just go back a few years. The corner where you used to hold your breath a little bit as you approached it, commit, hold your breath, and then relax when you've got through it, or not?
It was. I mean, but you get very little time to hold your breath around this track. It's a proper fight as Verstappen goes P2 to his teammate, improves on his lap from before. Hopefully the brakes are starting to feel a bit better in that Red Bull.
Sergio Perez has now put the fastest middle sector together. You can't quite see him. He's coming around the final corner at the moment and crosses the line, or actually, yeah, crosses the line 1:18.5 with his fastest time. And carries on his way. He didn't improve in the final sector, but did in the middle part of that lap. Big weekend, I think, this for Sergio Perez. Not for the first time in his career, or certainly this Red Bull career, that questions have just been asked a little bit about, is he doing enough to support or to aid Red Bull in their World Championship quest? Where do we stand on this?
Well, it's gone from us asking a question or even raising the point of concern, and the team kind of batting it away and saying, no, nothing to see here. Drivers have ups and downs. It's all part of it, part of a long season. It's now changed. Oh, it's a little gravel gets kicked up there by Piastri. New gravel, by the way, yep, for this year. I like it. It's a new addition for this season, Exeter Turn 12. But it's now gone to the team basically making headlines saying, yes, it's time to start improving. We're losing valuable points to teams like McLaren and Mercedes that are starting, and Ferrari starting to catch up. And that's putting pressure on everybody in the team, mostly on Sergio Perez's shoulders, because what is it, 15 points out of the last 6 races only?
Yeah, well, why are the questions being asked? I'll help you out with that one in a moment. This was Oscar Piastri, a little exertion into the gravel. Stops you running wide and not getting away with it.
I love it. It's self-policing. We said this in Austria.
Away with it even.
Yeah, and wow, look at that. So the DRS was open, wasn't it, as Sainz was exiting the corner, and once again keeping his foot flat to the floor, even though the car's going sideways.
Sergio Perez out in Q1 at 3 of the last 5 Grand Prix, same record as Logan Sargent and Zhou Guanyu. Scored 11 points in the last 5 Grand Prix. This after he finished in the top 6 at the first 6 races in 2024, and also the 2 sprints in that part as well. And he's the only driver from the top 4 teams not to have led a lap in 2024. That's why the questions are being asked.
And it raised questions as well. In that, was the Red Bull still the fastest car? And I feel like Max was doing such an excellent job of hustling that car around when we were led to believe, and of course the car was dominant for some period, and probably starting this season it was still the dominant car. But I started to ask those questions, was it still the dominant car, when I started seeing Perez's results suffer a bit. And that's usual. Oh, and there's a crash for Leclerc.
That's Charles Leclerc. And he has had a moment out of turn 4 and into turn 5, the hairpin. And that is a corner we've been talking about, fully committed, approaching at 140 miles an hour. And yeah, that's caught everyone's attention. And it's a red flag as well.
Not surprised.
As the car stopped on the outside of the track just before turn 5, and hopefully Charles Leclerc is all fine. He says he's okay, which is great. But climbing out there of his Ferrari, that is his session done with.
I should imagine he's gone over that curve. So we saw Sainz before running over the curve and the car sparking. Maybe he's gone a bit too far, and it's actually finally lost adhesion spun around and slapped the left-hand side of the car into the wall on the left-hand side. So,
medical car's been deployed, which it does automatically if there's a certain G-force that is registered when we have an accident like that. That's one of the safety measures that the FIA take. But so good to see Charles Leclerc just climbing out, seemingly unharmed.
Well, we talked about that corner. We love that corner. And it's because it's quick. It's because the drivers have to be committed. And we're going to see a replay of it here. So this is out of turn 3, full throttle, up the hill. Blind left-hander coming up with 4. Yeah, exactly as I thought. It's just gone over the curb, spun him round and slapped the car into the left-hand side.
Oh, he's touched the wall. Rear left.
Yeah, touched, a little harder than touched, I would definitely say there. That is the impact there. Whew. You can see why there's a red flag as well, because it's dislodged the advertising hoardings.
It's done the rear wing as well, hasn't it?
But look, the advertising hoardings here. That are just paper, cardboard material on the outside of the Armco barrier. But yeah, that will have done a fair bit of damage.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that the warning lights come on and the FIA have jumped into action with this one, with the medical car there on the scene, because you go hitting one of those Armco barriers. I wasn't aware what was behind the hoardings, basically. I think we were trying to say is that it was only when we saw them get ripped off, you saw actually metal barrier. And that sends a lot of energy through the car, through the system.
And it's not a barrier where you'd normally have a heavy impact, which is why there's no Tech Pro or tyre barrier there, because all the forces are taking the cars away from the barrier through turn 4. And it was because he got spun around that we had the reverse of an incident we would normally see. On the other side of the track, the right-hand side of the track, tyre barriers everywhere.
Exactly. Most cars that race around this circuit, and this circuit is used quite a lot, most cars would just simply run off the track and spin outwards. But with these cars being so fast, with so much momentum, as soon as the car got sideways, the front wing was still doing its thing. Yeah. So it's sending the car left instead of outwards out of the corner, and that's what spun it around to the inside as he exited the corner. So yeah, I mean, you live and learn, and unfortunately sometimes you have to learn through accidents, mistakes, and I'm sure in the future we'll see that barrier with either Tech Pro, like you say, or tyre barriers put in place.
Just getting a quick look there, you can see front wing damage. That's superficial, that can be replaced. Gearbox won't be a race gearbox in there.
Left side of the floor.
Left side of the floor will need some repairing as well. And you would hope that the engine will have survived that impact. So after 20 minutes of this FP2 session, we have the red flag. The medical car has returned with Charles Leclerc to the pit lane. He's 10th fastest, but after that crash takes no further part. So Charles Leclerc then back into the pit lane. Drivers are actually required after an accident like that to keep their helmet and hands device on until they get back into the garage. That's why you see the drivers with their helmet on there, but he might be taking it off. He is. You're obliged to return with your helmet still on. But problematic for Ferrari in that they've lost a huge amount of time. Problematic for everyone else in that their runs would have been interrupted. For Charles Leclerc, does it dent as well your confidence the next time you approach turn 4, which, as we've discussed, is one for the fully committed, that you don't take that half-heartedly at all?
Momentarily, yes, absolutely. No matter who you are, it's going to affect you the next time you're in the car for that particular corner. And you allow yourself only a few mistakes a year, I'd say. Some drivers allow themselves only one. I remember Michael Schumacher always saying, I allow myself one mistake a year. Yeah,
and that's practice, it. That's it.
Oh, yeah, hopefully in practice as the worst case. But it's impossible to get through the whole season without, it's unrealistic, really, to expect getting through the whole year, as it's so competitive with 0 mistakes. But the next time you're back in the car, you really don't want to be making a mistake like that again, as we see another replay of it. Runs wide over the curb. He already had a snap of oversteer before he got to that curb, actually, and around it goes. He's then looking. looking to see where he ends up.
You surprised he kept his hand on the steering wheel?
It just depends. Well, first of all, you're just trying to correct it. He's put a lot of lock into it on the brakes. He's trying to slow down desperately as much energy as he can. But yeah, it's...
I suppose the rear took the major impact there.
He at the moment, it's so easy to say, you know, he's traveling at close to 150 miles an hour as it's spinning around there. It's easy for us to say, sitting here at 0 miles an hour, oh, I'm really surprised he didn't take his hand. He didn't have that train of thought in his head. It's a reflex.
Were you surprised?
All right, I'm not. I don't really want to comment because you just don't know what you're going to do. You just don't know what you're going to do. And I think it's a reflex more than anything.
Yeah.
You don't have time to think rationally, logically. So yeah, you're in survival mode really. Human instinct kicks in.
And was he chasing a bit of performance against his teammate there? As you can see Carlos Sainz a bit stronger in that part of the track. So was he just pushing a bit, knowing that his teammate actually was going faster through that corner?
Sometimes you know you're told by your engineer places you're struggling against your teammate is here, here, and here. So you don't. The problem is you don't know how 5 to 10 kilometers an hour feels before you do it. If your engineer says you're losing a tenth around turn 4 to Carlos, well, what does a tenth feel like in one corner? It's very hard to translate that, and sometimes, quite often actually, you overcompensate and you go over the limit.
Turn 14 is the final corner, and that's where Sergio Perez has a 5/100ths of a second advantage over Max Verstappen. He's currently a 10.5 clear, with the fastest time on the board so far. Welcome back to Budapest. We still have a red flag because of this. The scarlet red Ferrari of Charles Leclerc approaching turn 4, 140 miles an hour, throws it into the corner, then loses it on the curb. That is the result.
I think the car might have bottomed out. You know, he had that first snap right about there.
Yeah.
I heard the car bottom out then, and I think that's what sent it off over the curb afterwards. And then, of course, on the curb, it's game over. The car's spinning around. But the reason he went onto the curb in the first place, I believe, watching and listening to that back, is that the car hit the ground towards the rear of the car, and basically he was a bit of a passenger momentarily, and I think that's what ran him out too wide ultimately, and then onto the curb and spun him round.
And so Ferrari with a new revised floor as well after their recent porpoising issues as well. They've brought a new floor to Budapest to try and cure some of that. Let's head down to Ted Kravitz in the pit lane. Ted.
Thank you, Crofty. Yes, a couple of the drivers and teams down here taking this red flag opportunity to make some changes that they might not have otherwise had time for. Notably, I think you just saw Lando Norris, some work being done on the some of the inside bodywork on the right rear as you look at it. Sorry, go on.
I was just about to say, Ted, we're just seeing some pictures from up at turn 4 at the moment.
Of a rebuild.
This could be quite a lengthy delay because there is a major dent and a gap in the Armco, and quite a few people have gone to work on it. So if people have got changes to make, this isn't a bad time to do it. No indication of when we're going to get started again, but this could take a while.
Okay, yeah, so Lando Norris, the change to that rear corner seems to be complete now. Tell that information, Crofty, to the Ferrari security guy who is trying to bounce people out of the way of Carlos Sainz, who seems to be keen to rejoin the track as soon as the red flag goes in and then we get green flag conditions. But he's rather given up.
You go and tell him you're closer.
He's rather given up pushing us out of the way now as we point out to him that there is still a red flag. He's just doing his job, of course he is, and Carlos Sainz is keen to get out. But let me tell you about the rest of the mood in the Ferrari garage, and certainly on Charles Leclerc's side. I mean, it's it's obvious and an understatement to say this is the last thing that Charles Leclerc needed. Has tried to lift his spirits. Of course, he went to the Eras Tour Taylor Swift concert, didn't he, between Silverstone and here, trying to get some positivity into his life after a run of absolutely horrible results in that Ferrari. Some his fault, some not. The last thing he wants is to prolong the cruel summer as I joked to him yesterday.
That was Bananarama, Ted, not Taylor Swift.
He didn't really see the funny side of that, not that it was funny in the first place. But the interesting thing that Leclerc said, which I wasn't particularly aware of, was that he's been doing a lot of the legwork in comparing and contrasting different Ferrari upgrades, doing some of the experimentation we've been talking about, doing some of the donkey work, the horse work, you might call it, of actually comparing stuff on this car and trying to get it into a place that will give them a more driver-friendly car. And it looked like in the evidence of free practice 1, they got there. And now he throws it off the road. I hope they've got another one of the revised floors as a spare to put back on it in time for Saturday morning. But otherwise, Leclerc is just resigned to the back of the garage. And I can see his mechanics scratching their heads, his performance engineers looking at all the data and just seeing essentially what you and Anthony and everybody else has seen, that just went wide, got on that curb, and well, the rest is history.
Absolutely. Talking history, cruel summer was and always will be Bananarama for the likes of me, but my co-commentator for this session, Anthony Davidson, would like to make a musical point at this moment.
But it is a Taylor Swift song as well, as my daughter assures me.
And we'll be singing alongside you when you go and see Taylor Swift in the summer.
Can't wait. In the summer. See what you did there.
See what I did there. Neither can I, by the way. We're crowing at the moment because we both got tickets for Taylor Swift. Bring it on. Right, session will resume at 17:32 in 4 minutes' time. Bring it on. Just in case people think I get more excited about Taylor Swift than I do about Formula One, it's on a par as far as we're concerned at the moment. And not that flag. That lady there is waving the Hammer Time flag. Oh, I met those wonderful people just before we came up to the commentary box. They're having a whale of a time here in Budapest. But looking at the flags, the wind has picked up just a little bit. When Charles Leclerc approached turn 4 and then went through the car, he's turning into a crosswind, going towards the left-hand side of the track. Does that have any bearing on what happened or not?
He's turning, so I think the way the wind is blowing there, it's actually blowing towards you as you turn into the corner. So yeah, you're right, as you go through that left-hand corner, it's going to create a crosswind. But maybe as he starts to turn into the corner with that headwind, you got more downforce effectively. More downforce will push the car down lower onto the ground and create a bit more bottoming perhaps. Maybe it's a good thing to get more downforce, but a bad thing if it makes the car touch the ground. I definitely heard, I would like to see and hear it again. I'm sure I heard the car hit the ground just as the car twitched sideways the first time momentarily, and then that's what sent it wider. And I think driving into a headwind to that corner, if it was a big gust of wind just on that one occasion, it would be enough, or could be enough, just to drop the ride height that little bit more.
Most elevated part of the track as well. Let's head down to the pit wall. Laurent Mekis, the team boss at RB. He's here for us. We're looking into your garage at the moment. We can't see much, Laurent, because you've got the human wall there. What's going on?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. We are trying to hide a few things now. Seriously, we are doing a front suspension setting change on the Yuki, so we are trying to make it not too public. But I think you got us.
Yeah, to be honest, the minute you put the human wall up there, we know something's going down. Why do you need to make a front suspension change? What problems are you encountering out there today?
It's something we have changed between P1 and P2 that we are not fully happy with, and therefore we are adjusting it to something that will hopefully make the car a bit better for the next one.
Lauren, you mentioned that you were looking quite strong in FP1, and you also mentioned the fact you're in this midfield battle with the likes of Sauber, who looked quite strong actually at the end of that first session as well. Should we read anything into that performance? Have you read anything to that as well, or do you feel like we should take it with a pinch of salt?
Well, no, I think you're right. You know, you got the right pictures, I believe. You know, we were always expecting Sauber to join the party for that fight in the midfield. As I have a big update this weekend, they were fast straight away with both cars this morning. So we don't think it's fake. We think they are now joining that group. So two more cars to fight for the same thing. So yes, so I've made a big step. They were very, very fast this morning. We expect them to be fast this weekend and moving forward. We knew it was always going to happen. And it seems to be the case now.
And Lauren, just clear this up for us if you can. Track temperatures about 10 degrees on our screen cooler than it was in FP1. Is this a better track temperature for the tyres now, or is the the sensor in the shade a bit, and it's still punishingly hot in other areas of the track?
No, I think it is generally cooler than this morning. Now it was 60 degrees track temp this morning, which is probably the highest we have seen in a long time. So now it's only 50, and it's actually dropping very quickly. It is genuine. Yes, it brings back the cars to a more normal windows to operate the tires. So whether or not it's going to change the picking orders, it's what we are going to discover now. But also qualifying will be quite late in the afternoon. So I guess what we have today is probably closer to qualifying. What we have now is probably closer to what we will get in quali.
Lauren, brilliant and beautifully timed as well. Your last answer finished at 17:32 as the green light went on. I mean, you should be a radio DJ. That was like, I'm not going to crash the lyrics, not at all.
Perfection.
That certainly was.
That's why he does what he does. And we do what we do.
Right, one remaining Ferrari, Carlos Sainz. 18 other cars. Sadly for him, not Charles Leclerc. Sadly for that young man, I'm sure, as well. Charles Leclerc not going out onto the track.
Well, he might be a massive Carlos Sainz fan. He might be. He's super happy.
I'll go and ask him where Carlos Sainz is driving next year. Seems to be the big question at the moment. Everyone wants to know.
And what a powerful position he's found himself in. Yeah, I mean, he's got these... He is that cork in the bottle, isn't he, that every other driver is waiting for. Sainz has suddenly gone from looking around, maybe signing with the Williams, drive for next year, but now he's got almost the pick of the whole field, apart from Red Bull, and even maybe that seat might become available.
He is the driver market.
He
could go to Red Bull if Max goes to Mercedes. He could go to Mercedes if Max doesn't go to Mercedes.
It started off with him looking at potentially going to Audi, then it was Williams.
Well,
and
he's probably not going to Williams now.
No.
He could go to Alpine. Next one there, to replace that man there, Esteban Ocon. Could be anywhere. Williams seemed to have given up on Carlos Sainz. You'd have seen the reports about Esteban Ocon having a seat fitting there as well. I think, from what I've heard on that, he was a bit too tall for the Williams car for next year.
My heart bleeds for him, Crofty. Oh, too tall.
Yeah, not a problem you ever suffered from. You know, you were perfect dimensions for a racing driver. Right, soft tyres are on here. That's George Russell going for a push lap. Take us through it, Adam.
Yeah, so exit in turn one. You're into the second of 2 DRS zones around this track. Down the hill, drops down towards turn 2. And you want to hug the inside of that corner, get on power as early as you can, because you're flat through turn 3. You see the car sparking away as he's flat through that corner. Up the hill now to turn 4, where we saw Leclerc get it wrong before, and the car sparks again over that curb as he ducks under the trees. Before turn 5, you run out wide there. Straight line it before turn 6, climb over the curb on the inside, that one, then the other one as well in turn 7, all of the curb on the exit of 7, then into 8. Compromise that corner to open up 9, and then flat out, you heard it there under my voice, is full throttle through the next left that follows. And then through turn 11, down the hill now towards turn 12. He's up, fastest time of all in the middle sector, 3/10 up. Exits turn 12. Before the penultimate corner, it's a shame you can't see what he's doing on the steering wheel, but it's a nice nose cam shot anyway. It shows the speed of the car very well. And into the final corner, he just could see a twitch there. That would have been a much bigger moment if we could see what he was doing on the wheel, and actually loses a bit of time there through that final corner. Even though he does a personal best, it was as Hamilton crosses the line as well, just after him to go P2. So both Mercedes on top at the moment, Russell then Hamilton.
Oh, George Russell's good work there done in the middle sector, 2/10 over Lewis Hamilton in that part of the track.
And interestingly, took it a little bit easier in the first sector, maybe to pay off a bit more in the middle and final sector.
Just wondering, with the track temperature being so different to earlier, and probably different to how it's going to be tomorrow afternoon as well, that is an Aston Martin going very slowly indeed. Is that Alonso trying to find a gap?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is. And we'll see what that yellow flag in the middle sector was for in a moment. Joe Guan Yu approaching turn 4. You can hear the car bottoming, scraping along the ground. And oh, he had another moment on that curb and managed to avoid hitting the barrier. Well, so there's the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. Whoa, and he is right in the way. He is absolutely where Joe Guan Yu did not need him to be.
Well, to be fair to Perez there, I think he had cat-like reactions to get out of the way of a spinning car.
I'm not saying it was Sergio Perez's fault, but he was right in the way of where Zhou Guanyu did not want him to be.
Well, I think he was in the way when Zhou Guanyu started spinning. Perez was on the inside before turn 5, getting out of the way nicely because the racing line's on the outside going into that corner.
Yeah.
And as Zhou Guanyu spun around, he's then coming into the line.
Was he too close to turn 4?
No.
That would have spooked Zhou?
No.
Or did Zhou just have the moment and then think, oh, I'm going to hit Sergio here?
I think he's used it as a little bit of an exit. Lose a bit of lap time, sure. Spin the car around. I think he had made a bit of a mistake before the corner, and yeah, could have been visually impaired by it slightly on the exit, but I think he was spinning anyway before. Yeah. It was nothing to do with turbulence. It was, you lose a little bit of lap time, but not to that extent.
Could have been nasty though for Zhou Guanyu. Magnussen goes 5th. Bottas in the other Sauber goes 8th. Fastest. Let's head trackside again. Apologies if you heard any language that you may have been offended by when we were with Martin last time around. I think our microphones picked something up on that, but let's go to Martin now. Martin.
Well, I certainly didn't hear anything, but sorry, yes, you say. If somebody did. We were getting in a cameraman's way, apparently, at the time. It might have been him very upset with us. So, turn 4 was all about absolute, total commitment. And now we're around at turn 13 on this relentless, breathless lap that they do. And this is all about technique now. And the rear tyres, especially on a qualifying lap, will be screaming by now. They'll be overheated. And they've got to squeeze the throttle. As you hear the Williams doing it, although it's going in the pit lane, because turn 13 exit shares pit in at the same time, which causes quite a bit of confusion. A lot of cars going very, very slowly. You can tell it's tough on tyres around here, tough on the drivers, because I don't think I've ever seen quite so many slow laps, actually, where they don't want to take any life out of those tyres. But they've really got to place the car carefully. Let's have a look at the Haas coming through here. And you can tell, and that's going straight in the pit lane as well, just how gently they apply the throttle pedal and how they don't want to light the rear tyres up. If you break traction, you'll probably not get the grip back again before you have to lift off into the final turn. It's just 60 miles an hour through here as a minimum speed, and literally everybody's filing in the pit lane. Right, come on, Max. Give us a demonstration of how it's done here. Back end of the car wagging its tail as it's complaining. He just can feel that. He knows as soon as that loads up, as soon as he gets the lateral off, as soon as the car straightens up, so you're not asking the rear tyre to keep turning and supporting the car and then accelerate as well. You can tell he goes gently, gently, gently. It's gripped up, I'm going. Now we've got Fernando Alonso, really neat and tidy on the apex curve, and nice and wide through the exit, and they flick immediately into that very long final turn. That's Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin as well. So this is a little bit more about patience, it's about technique, and it's every bit as important as the scary turn 4 that we saw. And obviously I know that then, just after we left, Charles Leclerc had an accident there. But as always, you spend longer in a corner like this, a longer, slower corner than you do in turn 4. There's more time to be won and lost here. And if you flash the rear tyres up coming out of there, you might put the surface into a temperature zone where you can't recover the compound. You can't recover the properties, the full properties of the tyre compound. So this really is what it's all about, in terms, especially when it comes to the race. Back to you, Crofty.
Thanks ever so much, Martin. While we were with you trackside, we're watching Max Verstappen going through turn 14, and he eventually finished up 2.5 tenths behind Lando Norris, who will end the day with the fastest time in FP2, unless Nico Hülkenberg fancies a a crack at that. And given that Nico Hülkenberg's been in Q3 in 6 of the 12 races so far this weekend, you wouldn't put it past him at all. But with just under 19 minutes to go, we have Lando Norris from Max Verstappen from Carlos Sainz, just under 4 tenths, separating the top 3 with Perez and Russell, completing the top 5. And we didn't see much of Lando Norris's lap. Martin trackside and us here in the commentary box, but you know, he's strung together a fairly impressive lap there to be the only driver to dip into the 118.
Yeah, it's a really strong lap by Norris. I'd like to see that one back. Maybe I could have a look later on in the Sky Pad if we've got enough time. But I was surprised to see Verstappen, I say in inverted commas, only P2 from how strong the cars looked. I think the car, to be honest, looks much stronger on a race run than it does for a one-shot qualifying lap, but we still don't know, obviously, the fuel loads. It's a big effect around this track, and engine modes as well.
Yeah.
And when you get to this stage in the year, obviously, you start looking at your engine supply, and you want to limit the damage that you do on them in a practice session, and you can turn it up, you can afford to turn them up again for qualifying into the race. It has to stay that way from quali into the race. You can't change them once qualifying begins. But for now, you can comfortably be running a lower engine mode.
We've had nothing. This is Daniel Ricciardo down at turn 12 and then into the first of 2 hairpins that complete the lap.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of understeer in the mid-corner of 12. And then a car that doesn't really want to stick for him on the rear around the final corner. So
fighting it all the way through, wasn't he?
It's not doing, well, it's doing one thing at one point and then another thing around another corner. So, I mean, what do you do is set up there and kicks up a lot of dust on the exit of that final corner.
You find something a little more neutral, and
well, the problem
so I'm
is...
not sure how you do that.
Yeah, something more... But, yeah, I mean, you got a... They're both slow speed, relatively slow speed corners, and you've got a different balance in the car in 2 of those corners. So, yeah, that's a very tricky one. You do have a few tools to play with. The differential, of course, you can change from one corner to the next. So you can try to combat that in a way. Maybe the wind was having an effect as well in this final corner. And, yes, you could take a bit more front wing out of it to help your balance through the higher speed stuff and then work mechanically on, say, the setup of the suspension, the geometry of the car to help you through the slower speed corners, or with the differential to help you there.
You were talking about Max Verstappen and engine allocation before we looked at Daniel Ricciardo. Remember that engine in Canada that went...
How could I forget?
Rather kaput in the practice session. Yeah, now, nothing official has come from the team on this at all. I would be sorely amazed if we ever saw that engine back at a racetrack again, which leads me to think that at some stage Max Verstappen will take an extra power unit outside of his allocation, and there'll be grid penalties that come with it.
And you're most likely to do it maybe at the next track in Spa.
Well, I was just about to say Spa would be a really good place, given his previous record at Spa as well. He went from 14th on the grid there one year. I think he did.
Yeah, so he's done it once before, and it is the kind of traditional track where you would take a fresh engine, a new allocated engine, which gives you that 10-place grid drop. And then you can overtake, like you say, from a lowly grid position or a lower grid position than you may have qualified.
Lando Norris doing his race runs on a hard compound tyre here as he starts another lap. Lando Norris did 7 laps on the hard tyre in the first part of this FP2 session, and he's setting out on his race simulations now on that same set of C3 tyres. As a hard compound tyre, the C3 is very much liked by the teams. It's probably wrong to call it the hard, to be honest, because it's not a hard tyre. The C1 and the C2 are. This isn't. This is a very good medium, but it just happens to be the hard for this weekend. I've confused everyone now.
Yeah, exactly. So a tighter track, a slower track will naturally push you to softer compounds. So Pirelli therefore bring their 3 softest compounds of the range of 5. And so, yeah, we have what we would call, it's got the white stripe on it, the hard tyre, but it's still a fairly soft tyre, relatively speaking. So it can be the favoured race tyre, Some teams will obviously want to push it further on the mediums. So I'm intrigued to see which team or which tyre suits different cars up and down the grid, as Piastri looks like the changes are complete.
Well, let's go down to Ted Kravitz, and who's been observing these changes, and he can tell us more.
I have. There's the area of investigation and repair was to the front right portion of Piastri's floor. So while Lando Norris is out there getting the information on the hard tyre, I imagine they wanted Oscar to be out on the medium or the soft to do a different tyre run for the race to get some more information. So not for the first time today, in fact for the second time, Oscar is in the garage with a car problem. This time not the topping up of the water pressure that was in free practice 1, but just repairing some damage to the underside of the car. That's more or less finished now, and he should be on his way soon. Crofty, if you've got some questions about tyres and compounds, maybe what you need is the latest in our instalment of F1 Explained, which this week happens to be about F1 tyres, full of interesting facts that you never knew you didn't know about the F1 tyres, such as where are they made, what gas are they filled with, and what happens after they're done. All those answers in F1 Explained Tyres, produced and voiced by some pit lane idiot on Sunday.
You tread very carefully with that feature, Ted.
Ah, very good.
Very good.
I am going to tune in for that, because as much as we jest occasionally, they are rather important, these tyres.
I thought you were going to say as much as we jest about my passion for the subject, for tyres. Did you know that some of the playground surfaces that your kids play on, and if they fall off the slides, they don't hurt themselves, they might be made by ex-racing tyres. Did you know that, Crofty?
No, I didn't actually.
Plastic floors that you tread on sometimes.
Yeah,
plastic
made
floors.
by Formula 1 tyres.
Made by recycled Formula 1 tyres.
I want me a Charles Leclerc floor from the tyres that he had on today for the local kids' playground. Can you arrange that?
It's probably going to take 6 months because they need to be collected, analysed,
I'll go by the swings first.
Shredded, and then taken back to the UK, where eventually they're recycled. But I'll see what I can do.
Excellent. It is, by the way, an absolute running joke in the Sky Sports F1 office that Ted Kravitz is the only man to get excited by tyres. He isn't the only man. Ant and I get very excited by tyres. Bernie Collins can talk about tyres forever and a day. Right. And we listen when she does.
It's so true, yeah. The irony is so sweet that Ted's talking about tyres. Anyway, the drivers are tired of this topic, Crofty, and...
So here's my question, though, about tyres. If it was 60 degrees track temperature earlier, and it's 44 degrees now, and qualifying is going to be somewhere in the middle, the race is probably going to be somewhere in the middle, but to the upper ends of that, what on earth are they learning by going around and doing this now?
Well, you're always going to learn something, and you'll be able to put that marker in there as a caveat to say, yes, they are different conditions to what we'll be racing in, but we've still got that data, and it's relative to where we were in FP1. We had different conditions then as well. We ran the same 2 tyres then. Many teams ran the mediums and also the softs. So this is a good way to say, right, this is best case scenario then. The temperatures are starting to fall now a little bit. It's still 31.2 degrees ambient.
The air temperature hasn't moved at all, but the track temperature has gone down quite a bit.
Yeah, maybe the sensor is in the shade. I mean, it still feels incredibly hot.
Laura Mecki said that was about right.
Yeah, okay. So
I believe him.
Dropped a little bit, but it's still 45 degrees Celsius, the track. And
so cold.
So, you're still going to be learning a lot of valuable data here. But even if it's a little bit cooler than where the race will be at the start, you can say we've given ourselves a best case scenario. Lando Norris, for example, on the hard tyre, in cooler conditions than when race start will be. If you're suffering tyre degradation now, we're really going to have to work on this for the duration of the race.
So with that in mind, and Max is on the mediums currently, and I'm just looking at it. Now he ran soft this morning, running mediums and soft this afternoon. They're saving 2 sets of hard tyres for the race.
It would certainly look that way at the moment, and therefore Red Bull's preferred race tyre. So interesting, there's a split of strategies going on right now. with McLaren at least, and with Red Bull.
Yeah.
And then you look down, further down, what are Mercedes doing? So they're
mediums and soft.
Yeah, so no hards for them either. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to see how the different teams approach this challenge.
And you make the decision early on. You make the decision before the cars roll out on a Friday. You make the decisions on a Thursday at the very latest, because you've got to put the tyres into the blankets. McLaren, for instance, with Oscar Piastri and with Lando Norris at Silverstone, had a brand new set of medium tyres that they could have used in the final stint. And their plan was that if we need some tyres for the final stint of about 14 laps, because of a late eventuality, we'll save a brand new set of medium compound tyres, because they're the ones to be on. For some reason, they went against that plan. And I think if they went back now, if they went back to Silverstone now and redid it all over again, they might not have gone against the plan.
They would have pitted a lap earlier and slapped on a set of medium tyres.
I love it. Oscar Piastri, the Eras Tour. Oh, see? Taylor Swift references everywhere you look here.
You are a massive fan, aren't you?
Yeah. Anthony and I are doing Anthony Davis and David Croft, the Eras Tour. It'll be so much better.
Yeah, it began in 2012 and it's still going.
Playing the social clubs up and down the country. Yeah, forget these stadium gigs. The Eras Tour. Yuki Tsunoda.
Forgot how many errors we've made.
Oh, mate.
Here comes Tsunoda then. So he had a bit of traffic in the final corner. And yeah, that traffic was Fernando Alonso, I believe, from our circuit map.
So that was Yuki after the suspension change, the front suspension change, doing a qualifying simulation there at the wrong time, because everyone else is slower moving on the track.
There comes his teammate Daniel Ricciardo into turn one. So luckily Yuki would have been made aware of that. So what's going to happen here? So into the final corner.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Charge off.
Okay, don't rush me.
So that was opening his lap.
Yeah.
And we saw the end of it, of course, but he's
possibly
not enjoying being hurried along by
I don't think it was. Well, that should have been the end of his lap. Looking at the timing screen there, because look, you've gone personal best, and then lost time in the final sector.
Yeah, no, that replay was definitely of him opening up his lap. And now he's doing a cool down lap. Recharge the battery, get a state of charge up. You change the engine mode, you go into the recharge mode as well while you're doing that. And now he plays that tightrope walk of trying to stay out everyone's way, but not get your tyres dirty with all the rubber that gets flicked away from the tyres. That's the other complication of running soft tyres. Yeah. You get a lot more marbles.
And you do here 70 laps of this race, and there will be one line in between the marbles, especially in the middle part of the track. You mentioned it in FP1, I think, about moving offline. It is so tricky to do that and not pick up a load of rubbish on your tyres and lose time as a result of it.
Yeah, the amount of grip you lose when you run onto marbles is never to be underestimated. As we're on board with Carlos Sainz. Through turn 3 he goes. You actually see the scrape marks of the cars as they hit the ground there, and the resin plank touches the ground as well. Not so much the case in turn 4. And it's a very different process, isn't it, when you're running the car with more fuel on board, looking after the tyres. You're around 6 to 7 seconds a lap slower than where you were before. It's almost like driving a different category of car at this stage for the drivers, and all you're thinking about is don't let the car slip in any way. Don't let it slide when I get on power. Don't lock up, of course, under braking. Don't slide the fronts too much mid-corner of these long corners like the final one there, as we watch Perez tackle that one. And any slow-speed corner in the mid-corner, you don't want to overslip the front tyre by just unnecessarily cranking on too much lock. So the whole way through, the driver is feeling their way, just any kind of overslip of any kind of gyration of the car. That's a problem.
Yeah. Last lap, 1:24.1 for Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez did a 1:24.2. George Russell, a 1:24.0. Russell on the medium compound tyre currently as well. Who else is looking pretty good? 1:24.6 for Hamilton. 124.6 for Daniel Ricciardo as well in the RB. Sainz into the 125s, low 125s for him. Hamilton has just passed the line again, another 124.6 from him, a 124.7 from Alex Albon, who's the latest to cross the line, and a 125.3 from his teammate Logan Sargent. So 6/10ths difference between those two. 124.5 for Lando Norris at the end of his latest lap. Pierre Gasly next to cross the line as I watch these times, and then Max Verstappen, who I said to the 124.2, his latest lap a 124.3.
Yeah, so like I thought, the Red Bull looks good on a race run. Perez, though, through turn 8 and turn 9 at least, the car looked a bit uncomfortable for him, I have to say, in the change of direction.
124.1 though from him.
But yeah, so I mean, it is difficult for all of them out there, quite clearly. And we saw that in FP1 as well, in the even hotter conditions. But I mean, I think we're looking at the best race car out there. It might not have the speed ultimately for qualifying, but it looks like the nicest car to drive from a driver's point of view.
And it's the car that's won the last 2 Hungarian Grand Prix, of course. Once from the front row last year, once from 10th on the grid the year before that.
And you just saw there George Russell on the exit of turn 5, the rear just slipping away from him a bit too much, and there on the exit of turn 7 as well. Every single overslip that you're looking at, first of all, it's a sign that the driver's not completely comfortable with the balance of the car. Secondly, you're doing further and further damage and overheating the rear end of the car, or rear end of the tyres. And that lives with you. Yeah. The tyres never forget. They've got very good memory in exactly how they've been punished, yeah. And they're gonna fight back.
We didn't like what you did on the first 2 laps.
Yeah.
You'll suffer for it on lap 10. So there you go. Ted, down to you.
Just kind of a couple of final things down here from the pit lane as Lando Norris just goes on to the soft tyre for the last couple of minutes left in this session. Good session for Kevin Magnussen and for Haas generally. I think Nico Hülkenberg hasn't been going for overall single lap speed, but he'll be up there come tomorrow, as will Magnussen. That's I think he's in the top 6, Crofty. Correct me if I'm wrong.
6th. You're right.
Excellent. So yeah, good turn of pace from Magnussen. And finally from down here, to answer anybody who's been curious as to how the worldwide IT outage has affected some of the F1 teams, it has. It's been a very busy morning for all the teams' IT folk. And this from Mercedes, they say that they had to fix some of their computers this morning. It had no impact on free practice 1 as it was all done by then. But their pit wall, I know you might have seen on the internet, Crofty, that some of the pictures of the Mercedes pit wall was struggling to load up this morning. The pit wall was the final thing to be fixed, as it was the last thing to be needed, say the team, and acknowledging that there were some images of their IT people trying to get their pit wall monitors up and running this morning. But that's how it's affected the teams, which is to say not very much, only this morning, and it's all fixed by now.
That's good to hear. Hopefully things elsewhere outside of Formula 1 are beginning to be fixed too. Thanks, Ted. See you later. Chasing around the final corner, Lando Norris behind the Sauber. He's going to put a move into turn 1. Valtteri Bottas, a man who is no slouch around here, it has to be said, who has been on the front row, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, I think, in the past here. Valtteri Bottas dispatched as Norris carries on his way.
And see you later it was to George Russell as well, who Lando Norris came out of the pits just in front of after this pit stop here. This was him entering the pits on the hard tyre and using some of that curb as well on the exit, pushing incredibly hard.
I tell you
this
what,
is
though,
time to practice.
That's a good memory bank. I was going to say if it was helping him go faster, but I don't think it did.
I don't think that was faster. It was just pushing the limits and understanding exactly how fast you can go into the pit lane. What I was going to say, though, is that he then put on the soft set of tyres and came out just in front of Russell, pulled away from him immediately, overtook Bottas, and now is on his way catching the other Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. So it just goes to show, even though he's on the soft set of tyres, a used set of soft tyres, you jump back out there after they've been in the garage, cooled down a little bit, and that immediate performance gain, just from them being a bit cooler, was enough just to fly away from Russell.
You watch the undercuts on Sunday here.
Oh yeah.
Massively powerful. Get the stop in before your opponent. and then use that fresh rubber to be ahead by the time they react. And they might even react at the end of the next 2.7 miles, one lap, but it might be too late by that stage. And if you start doing that too early, it very much pushes this race to a two-stop race. And it's one of the reasons, I think, that has made this a much better race to watch now than it was maybe 20 years ago here.
Yeah, it wouldn't quite be the same case if we were on the 3 hardest Pirelli tyres of the range. I think then it could be a very different story, and maybe more of a... Yeah, traditionally this race was always one where you saw very little overtaking, whereas now, thanks to the tyre degradation, you have that offset in performance, and therefore you can get some overtaking.
It's not the race it was. And Jenson Button was winning here from 14th on the grid. I was watching some replays of that the other night. Oh, marvellous. Some guy from Hemel doing the summarising. Brilliant. I won it for him. Is that what you said?
Was that in amongst your Taylor Swift?
Yeah, it was. I'd stopped listening to Tay-Tay by that stage. I'm a shake it off kind of guy, don't worry. Lewis Hamilton, 7th fastest, separated between him and his teammate George Russell by just nearly 7/100ths of a second. Kevin Magnussen at the race after Haas have announced that he won't be with him for next year, with a point to prove that maybe it's not just Carlos Sainz they should be chasing, the other teams. 6th fastest, really good performance from him. Sergio Perez, another one with a point to prove. 4th fastest and a better practice session from Sergio than we've maybe seen in recent weeks. Charles Leclerc lost out on anything other than 8 laps today in this FP2 session. Didn't get a qualifying run in on the soft tyres after his crash. So Carlos Sainz finished 3rd with Verstappen and Norris, the cars ahead of him. And let's have a listen now.
Really interesting as well to watch the throttle progression.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just go flat out and dump the clutch. It's what you want to do is really limit the amount of wheel spin off the line. And you saw how much he attacked turn 1 as well. So we saw a Norris attack the pit lane entry, Lewis attacking turn 1, and he actually shifted the brake bias rearward as well in preparation for that.
And thanks, mate. It's been a wonderful 60 minutes of Formula 1 action with Lando Norris fastest with a 1:17.7, quickest time in FP2 last year, 1:17.6 from Charles Leclerc. Verstappen and Sainz, for this track, quite a long way back, to be fair. 2nd and 3rd fastest, half a second separating the top 5. It was half a second separating the top 10 in Q3 this time last year. Alonso sneaked into the top 10, Albon too. Daniel Ricciardo and Kevin Magnussen will be very happy with their efforts at 8th and 6th respectively. And Yuki Tsunoda left his soft tyre qualifying runs until late after a front suspension change. Zhou Guanyu was the slowest driver. He had a moment on his flying lap, nearly collected Sergio Perez. Bottas was 11th fastest. Charles Leclerc, only 18th fastest, didn't get the soft tyres on at all.